Everybody got advice, ain't really work for me. Tell me go see a therapist, it ain't work for me. Tried to put me on the meds, didn't numb the hurt for me. Drown myself in the drink, didn't quench the thirst for me. Everything they was telling me to become ain't really.
Welcome back to the Mentally Shredded Show. I am your host, Christopher Whedon, and today we have a special guest with us. She is a clinical partner, she is a veteran, a mother, and a licensed mental health professional, Shannon La Douce. Shannon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good, Chris. How are you doing?
I am living the dream. I am here at the beach, and I am not sure how long I will be here, but I am enjoying it.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the most enjoyable parts of life when we don't really have a plan.
That is true. That is true. So thank you again for joining us. You have an incredible story. Obviously, I had to throw the plug in that you are a clinical partner with the foundation, but more importantly, you are a mother, a veteran, a CrossFit coach, which I didn't even add, right? So you are a person that wears many hats. But I want to start at the beginning to give our audience a chance to get to know who you are. Can you share a bit of your background and the life experiences that shaped where you are today and what led you down the path that you are on?
Absolutely. That is a question that I'm trying to make the answer shorter to. I think every individual I've ever met is such a unique blend of experiences and chapters in their life, which shape who they are. Not only the experiences, but the people and the challenges and everything that's wrapped up in each phase of life. But it's taken some time figuring out my own journey and where the parts of the adult parts of me started. And I think they started a lot longer ago than I recognized for a long time. Let's see, how old was I when I started playing ice hockey? I was probably 7, 8 years old tops. And I started playing ice hockey because the neighbor boys, there were 2 boys I grew up with, and I had a brother. So I basically grew up with 3 boys. They all played hockey, and I got into it thanks to all of them. And throughout high school, I was the only girl oftentimes on all boys hockey teams. So I think that was the beginning of what shaped who I am, both the positive parts and the parts of me that have really helped me forge into the person I am today, but also the challenges that I've noticed in adulthood, that things like always feeling like I have to prove myself because of being in situations where I was the only girl. So being really hard on myself, feeling like I was different. I spent lots of time having to get dressed in the bathroom at tournaments and things because I couldn't be in the locker room for obvious reasons, but that I wasn't able to be a part of the camaraderie and a lot of the team building that was going on there. So I had to really make sure I was really good in my skills to prove my worth from a very, very young age. So that was probably where some of my challenges and my strengths started. And then after I graduated from high school, I ended up going to Michigan and played a couple years of Division III NCAA hockey. Was playing on a girls' team by that point. I also played softball in college. So I was a dual sport NCAA athlete while I was a nursing major, which looking back was a questionable decision. But that's kind of how my life has always gone. I've always been a really hard worker. I've always done a lot of different things, and always been able to kind of thrive in the fire, which I'm learning I have to balance more today. So I took on that challenge. I was, I think, the only athlete. Maybe there's 1 or 2 more athletes in the entire nursing program. And I quickly found out there was a reason for that, because nursing school is extremely rigorous and balancing all of those pieces was very, very challenging. So I ended up walking away from sports after my sophomore year. I watched a lot of my teammates that were athletes, or sorry, that were in the nursing program, walk away from nursing and ended up changing their major. And I'm proud of myself looking back on my 19-year-old self, knowing that as much as I thought college sports were everything, there was a lot of life that happened after that. So I'm proud of that decision, sticking with the career path I wanted ultimately, but very, very challenging choice. And then after that, I ended up joining Army ROTC. I was receiving scholarship money to play sports. So after I made that decision, I had to figure out, okay, am I going to get a job? How am I going to pay for, my living and pay for my schooling? And there was an Army ROTC program at a sister school at Michigan Tech University that was like right across the river from where we were, and they needed nurses. So I ended up kind of trying that out, and really enjoying it. So I joined the ROTC program, ended up getting a scholarship. That did add a little bit to my workload, as far as I also had to have classes in military science and have PT in the mornings and things like that. But they ended up paying my way through the rest of my 2 years of nursing school, and paid for the dorm and food and all those things. So very thankful for that decision. And then after I graduated from nursing school, I actually in 1 week decided to this is speaks to who I am. In 1 week, I graduated from nursing school, commissioned into the active duty Army Nurse Corps, and I got married. So all in 1 week, that was what I did. And just again speaks to the way I always have chosen to live my life, which I later learned was not always helpful. But I ended up marrying the individual that I was with throughout college. Made a little bit of a quick decision because Army, like, he was in the ROTC program too. So if we didn't get married, we were going to get separated. So had to make some decisions that maybe if it wasn't under those circumstances, we would have thought otherwise. But at that point in time, it was the right choice, and I have 2 wonderful children out of it. So I'm going to keep thinking that it's the right choice.
Absolutely.
But from there, I was sent to Bethesda, or previously Walter Reed. They combined into one. So that's in Washington, D.C. That was my first duty station, and where I learned basically to be a nurse. And at that duty station was also where I decided ultimately I wanted to go into becoming a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, which is what I am today. It's kind of fun looking back on, we had to fill out, we had officer evaluation reports, and we had to fill out basically like our part with our goals on it and all that. And I remember writing down my long-term goal was, in 10 years from now, I want to have completed my master's degree and I want to be a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. So it's kind of cool. I want to find that and frame it and put it in my office. But there I worked on the hematology oncology floor. So end of life care, cancer diagnoses, very, very challenging. And it was not only my first eye-opening experience into how much heart it takes to be a nurse and how much you have to care about yourself because of what we carry every day. It was also where I learned how important it is to have people to your left and right when you're going through really hard things. And that is also where I learned how fortunate I am to be able to be that person for so many people, because I got to be there with family members. The doctor comes in and says some really challenging news, and then when they leave to go make the rest of their rounds, the nurse comes in and we're the person that, is there through all the emotions and answering questions and trying to help the family and patients understand really what's going on. So that's why they call nurses the heart of healthcare. But from that point, I also did some shadowing in the traumatic brain injury floor at Walter Reed. I did some psych rotations, kind of floated to places wherever I was needed. And I kept finding out that I was being drawn to the places that were more mentally challenging, where people needed more support emotionally, even more than physically. Um, so one of the soldiers that changed my life was an individual who sustained pretty significant traumatic brain injury from an IED explosion. And he said to me that he wished that he was one of the soldiers that was on the wounded warrior floor that had lost a limb or had something outwardly that was wrong physically, because his injury was invisible and he felt like he was misunderstood for it. And that was something that just really, really stuck with me about mental health and the challenges that come as people can look like they're so put together on the outside. Um, but no one really knows what's going on internally.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the point that I decided that was eventually what I was going to do. So from then on, I went to several other different duty stations. I was active duty for 7 years, did a variety of inpatient settings in the hospital, from labor and delivery and postpartum to, like I said, cancer care, general med surge, just kind of the needs of the Army and learning how to grow and thrive and adapt really quickly, moving every couple of years. And as soon as I got good at something, it was like, oh, you have you have orders, you're going to go do something new. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what got me there. And then I ended up going back to school. I used my GI Bill to go get my master's degree and to specialize in being a mental health nurse practitioner. Um, that was kind of my transition out of the military, going back to grad school. But that was a challenging part in my life too, because I didn't realize how much I relied on having teammates and camaraderie, because my whole life I was on a team. And in healthcare, it's very much the same. Like, you go through things with your teammates, your nurse, like the nurses on the floor with you are your teammates, the camaraderie of going through difficult trainings in the Army. So stepping away from that and being, let's see, how old was I when I got out? 29. That was the first time in my life I didn't have a team of people. So that is ultimately where I started leaning into CrossFit. I became a street parking member. It's a community that you can do workouts virtually with people. I was able to meet some individuals through my workouts that way. I was also a mom of a 2-year-old and a newborn, navigating my way through what does life look like as a mom and a professional, because I always knew I wanted to continue to be a professional, but also balancing how do I show up for my kids the way I want to, because that's my most important job, while still having my own purpose outside of the home too. So that's kind of a long answer.
No,
I'm
I,
not short
I love it. I love it. And we can take that in a few different directions. But first, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And now we have some more information on who it is and why you are the way that you are, right? And so I want to touch on the mental health piece real quick before we dive into the family piece, right? And so you mentioned the stigma when you were in the military, that the gentleman that you were working with said, I wish I would have just lost a limb because nobody can see what I'm struggling with and it seems made up. From your professional opinion, can you share how that comment may have impacted the trajectory to where you are today? And how important is it for us to continue to destigmatize this important topic?
Yeah. So in the military, when I was at Walter Reed, because it's such a high profile hospital, we had all sorts of people come and visit the soldiers, and I guess it was all services that were on the Wounded Warrior floor. And those mostly were people with those outward injuries. And I will say that all of them did have the emotional and mental challenges that came along with their experiences and all that too. So I just want to add that in there. But we had like the president would come. We would have famous sports teams, professional sports teams that would come, and they would always go to the Wounded Warrior floor, but they didn't visit the traumatic brain injury floor. And it's always like the psych ward or the TBI ward. It was always kind of like a place that didn't feel warm or made people feel uncomfortable. So even that in itself, I think, just speaks for the stigma and the discomfort around that. And I knew it existed, but seeing it that way outwardly made it more tangible to just like really see how big that impact has on people. And that is why that individual told me that is like all they're getting recognition. People are thankful for their sacrifices. And now his TBI was causing him anxiety and depression and irritability and things that were impacting him both socially and occupationally. And he was struggling with all these things from basically the same thing, an IED causing mental challenges opposed to an IED causing physical challenges. But he just felt so alone and invisible. And when you're already dealing with the challenges of depression or, your brain not working the same as it was, or when he, all of the moral injury or the PTSD and everything else that comes from his service and what happened in his situation, you already feel alone and you already feel like a problem and you have these voices in your head telling you these things already. So then when it's not recognized, even more so, it can be a really lonely, detrimental journey. And, we see a lot of like the veteran suicide rate just continues to climb. The VAs can't keep up with mental health care at this point. We just don't have enough services. And I think a lot of it has to do with there's such a stigma around asking for help. And then when we're in the military and first responders and healthcare providers and so many more athletes, we always are told to suck it up and to just keep driving forward. And it's a sign of weakness to not be able to do our job and without having some kind of mental health component with it. So it's always this just keep driving on, just keep driving on. And that's not actually possible with the things that we endure.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. And obviously, being in the space that I'm in, I see that, not to the level that in which you've seen it, but I see it. And that's why we have our programs uniquely designed the way that we do, because we know that not everybody wants to show up to a mental health event, but they may show up to a workout, right?
Yep.
and luckily for us, then we can have that conversation. But yes, it's very important, the work that you do, and the work that many people like us are doing to continue to combat these negative and these narratives, because mental health is health. And though you can't see it always, right? Because at some point you can see it if people don't seek the right help, but it's not the same as the conversation of, hey, I have cancer, for example, right? It's a much easier conversation for some reason than, hey, I'm suffering from severe PTSD, right? And the only people that would really be able to understand that are people that have suffered severe PTSD and have overcome that, right? And so, yes, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And a way I liked address that, just to add in to what you just said, was the brain is an organ just like our heart, just like our pancreas, just like everything else. So as a mental health professional, that is the way I try to destigmatize that for my patients is, once our brain endures enough, it's just like any other physical system in our body that's going to need addressed. So it's the same to go get mental health care as it is to, like, if you are in congestive heart failure, you're going to need treatments for your heart. So I
I
like
like
to
that.
frame it that.
Yes, I love that. Your brain is an organ, right? You simplified it. uh, so touching on the family piece, because I know how important family is to you and your children are. And so how do you show up for them, continuing to be obviously their mother, but the work that you're doing is amazing across all fields and levels. And so how do you empower them and show up at the same time?
Yeah. So to add into some of my challenges that I haven't touched on, I'm a single mom now. Um, I think I kind of led into maybe my questionable decisions earlier in this episode, but I have been a single mom for almost 5 years, and the kids, they've been with me the entire time. So we relocated to the Pacific Northwest to be where my family is. So I say I'm a single mom, but I have quite the tribe behind me and alongside of us. And my kids and I are very, very grateful for that and lucky. But they are part of how I can do all the different things that I do. But I always want my kids to know that they come first and foremost, but I also want them to know that they can do both and that they can dream and they can have purpose outside of family too. So making sure that they always know they're the priority comes from a space of taking care of myself. What I do is very challenging. It's very mentally taxing. So my workouts, like I said, I've been an athlete my entire life, but since I became a single mom, endured some of my own mental health challenges, and became a mental health professional, really forced me to take a bigger look into how I need to show up for myself so I can show up for my patients, my kids, um, my family members, my friends, because if I don't pour into myself, I can't be good at any of those things. So workouts have always been a priority for me. The kids know, they've seen me, like, they've been in the gym with me since they were born. I have a gym in my garage. They've watched me do that. They do the kids CrossFit classes that I coach. So showing them by leading from the front of what it looks like to pour into yourself, take care of yourself, and that is how I can make sure I'm a good mom too.
Yes. Building off of that, are there any other tools that you have that pour into you to prevent burnout, right? Being in a stressful space, especially work wise, being a mother, I'm sure has its own challenges as well. I understand that from being a parent, right? So, um, share any tools that you have that you use in your arsenal day to day that help prevent burnout and that just really help you show up as your best self.
Yeah. Um, treating I say this to myself and I say this to my patients and to my kids and to my friends, but treating ourselves like a plant. There's a saying that when a plant or a flower doesn't grow, we don't blame the flower or the plant. We look at the soil. Is it getting enough light or the light requirements it needs? Does it need fresh air? Is it getting watered enough? And it's very much the same thing. If I start feeling also, just knowing my warning signs, I guess I should say first. So I know when I'm feeling a little bit less motivated or I'm feeling a little anxious or overwhelmed. Those are some warning signs to me of either my plate's too full or I'm not paying attention to the basics. So getting enough sleep is huge. Making sure I'm hydrating, making sure I'm watching my caffeine intake, making sure that my diet is on par for performance, both physical and brain health, and getting movement, getting fresh air, all the basic things is what I always come back to whenever my warning flags kind of come up of, hey, you're feeling burnt out. Um, so that is what I preach the most, is just breaking it down to the basics. And that's one of the reasons I was so excited to partner with you, is because that's a big importance. People come to me, I can prescribe medications and I can do brief psychotherapy, but a lot of them aren't doing any of the basics. And psychotherapy and medication can only go so far. Those are only a couple tools in our arsenal, and we have to make sure that we're also doing everything else, as well as community, having people to lean into as well.
Yes. You touched on being drawn to our work. How did you find the foundation initially? And in addition to the exercise piece, was there anything else that attracted you to the foundation?
Yeah. So I work over telehealth only. I see patients in more rural areas with harder access to care in the states of Oregon and Washington. And I have an office at the gym that I coach at. So I'm kind of like, I go from doing my telehealth to coaching classes, which has been a really wonderful balance for me too. I guess I'll add that to my arsenal of, that's my community. That's me getting to show up and seeing other people that are showing up in the ways of, like, this morning, for example, I coached 5 and 6 a.m. and I got to hang out with a bunch of people that chose to get up and start their day off, filling their cup before they went and tackled the rest of their day. So one of the things I've noticed is people have started to ask me questions at the gym of, hey, you have an office here, what do you do? And now that people know that I'm a mental health professional, I've had multiple times, especially with first responders, we have a lot of nurses at our gym who they aren't feeling comfy with going to therapy or seeing someone like myself, but they've started talking to me during workouts, especially when we have smaller classes, and they'll start just talking to me. It'll just come out of nowhere and it'll start flowing, saying some challenges they had at work or talking about some challenges they're having with their kiddos or something. And then we'll be working out and we'll be talking. And then after, they're like, thank you. That was really nice to just get that all out. So I started I've been seeing my goal of kind of combining all of those things together, from my coaching side of things and my professional mental health side of things, kind of coming to fruition naturally. So then I've been looking, honestly, just Google searching, is anybody doing this out there? And I saw you. So I was like, okay, they're in North Carolina, but he's doing what I want to do. So that was what prompted me to reach out. It was honestly a Google search trying to find someone doing what I wanted to do.
Wow. Well, we will take it. Thank you, SEO and all of the things. No, and thank you for sharing that. That means a lot, because you never know how your story or what you're doing is going to do in somebody's life. You have to get started, and I think that's the most important piece. We can see all of the obstacles, like, and try to figure out the how, and because we can't always figure out the how, a lot of people prevent themselves from even taking the step. And so hopefully people that are listening to this, is Shannon has made decisions, and when she made the decision, she took that step, right? And she's learned along the way. And if coming back to me real quick, if I didn't make the decision to just take that risk and bet on myself, you and I would not have even met. We wouldn't be having this conversation. And so for whoever is listening, if you are sitting and you're waiting and you've been like saying, I'm going to do it, but you keep delaying, my hope is that now you take the time to take that first step towards whatever it is that you want to pursue. And maybe it is just, hey, I want to take that next step into therapy. Well, great. If you're in the location that Shannon is in regarding Washington or Oregon, then please reach out to her. If there is another area that we have a clinical partner in, please reach out to them. But if maybe it's just a business decision, right? And so I don't know what it is for you, but I do believe taking that next step is going to change everything.
Mhm. Yep, I absolutely agree. Getting out of your own way too, and just doing the thing. And growth requires a whole lot of discomfort. So usually, if you're getting some kind of signal of, "Hey, this is uncomfy," that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Shannon, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a valuable asset to our team as well, and for all the work that you are doing. I would like for our listeners to be able to find you, obviously, via social media. If they do want to speak to a mental health professional, where can they go to find you? And is social media appropriate? If it is, please share that with us as well.
Yeah. So I'm a private contractor at Upwell Psychiatry, UPWELL. And we actually have a fantastic team. There are 7 of us now, psychiatric nurse practitioners that can do both medication management, and psychotherapy. And all of us are very, natural based as well, using more functional integrative means. So I like to let people know that we don't just push medications. I think that's part of the stigma too, as we talk about, like I just said, we talk about nutrition, we talk about schedule, we talk about sleep, we talk about stress management. It's not just, if you come see us, we're going to expect you to be on a medication. So I would I would trust anyone at Upwell with my friends and my family. I say that with confidence. So I would, you can Google just Upwell Psychiatry and find us, and it's easy to get connected with any of us. And then Upwell also has a Facebook and a Instagram page.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. As always, if there was anything that you could take away from this episode, our ask is that you please subscribe and please share that with a friend who you feel may also need this content. Again, we could not do this without you. We look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday. And until next time, we love you. Peace.